All right, we're live and welcome everyone. My name's Cole.
My name's Kayla.
And we have our friend Darryl Mead with us. And thank you for joining us for our guest speaker for the month. And Darryl is someone that I've really had the pleasure to spend a lot of time with. He's actually an active member in our men's community, and he shares a lot of wisdom and insights. I first met Darryl at the NCOSE, the National Coalition or National Center of Sexual Exploitation. And we met at the CESE event, the Coalition to End Sexual Exploitation. Now, this was the first time they did it virtually, and it was a success. They had over 10,000 in attendance, and it was just an amazing 10 days of diving into these topics. It was pretty intense. Darryl shared with me that when it was in person, they even had like a almost like a counseling or like a therapy room you could go in, because it was, and there is some really dark topics that we see in this space. So met Darryl there, and I would like to say that we do have the Coalition to End Sexual Exploitation 2021 event is in July, and so we encourage our community to attend all or some if they can. That'll be July 20th to the 24th. The attendance is free, so be sure to sign up with NCOSE. And so that's where I met Darryl. And Daryl, his nonprofit is based out in Scotland. Him and his amazing wife, Mary, live in Cambridge. And their nonprofit is called the Reward Foundation. And so we are really excited to get this time with Darryl. I asked Darryl what was an interesting fact or credential. He's like, well, I helped start the internet here in the UK. So we said it's, oh, this is all your fault. I'm just kidding. No. But Darryl's in this space for 6 years. We are honored to be friends with him and get to have him on our call. So thank you.
Thank you, Cole, and thank you, Kayla, for inviting me.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's really exciting to be here. It's pornography is a worldwide issue, and having a chance to share the knowledge and information I've gained over the last few years with you and with everyone else is very, very helpful. And it's the sort of thing that's why I do my not-for-profit, and it's what I want to do. So thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about your nonprofit, the Reward Foundation.
Well, we were formed in 2014. Was formed originally by my wife, Mary Sharp, who was a lawyer, and she'd done a lot of work with things like divorces and other marriage issues. And she was very motivated to try and find what makes love relationships work and what's a blocker. And it became quite clear from work she'd done before then that pornography is one of the key blockers. It's a brand new thing in terms of the whole world having access. There's been porn forever, but it was very much a rare thing, a specialist thing for small numbers of people. And now it's possibly half the adults on the planet are using it. So it's a complete turnaround. And so that motivated her. She tried doing it first as a part-time thing, became full-time, and recently I swapped over roles with her, and I became the chief executive, and she's become the chair rather than the other way around. But we have, it was an opportunity for us to try and pass on the knowledge we've gained to the world. And it's a bit like being the canary in the coal mine, because everybody thinks porn's marvelous. It's free, it's exciting, it's amazing, it's endless. It truly is endless. And there's no risks. Wrong. There are risks.
Yeah.
So what I've learned from looking at the scientific literature and starting to now contribute to it is that we've got to think about what the real risks are and pay attention to them, because the risks are our own future mental health, our future physical health, and everybody else's. It affects relationships, it affects everything else. So I'm motivated basically by trying to tell the world that this is not a good idea. I've come from a background of 30 years working in culture. I've worked in big museum services. I ended my professional role as the Deputy National Librarian in Scotland. So providing information to people is what I've done for my professional life. And now I'm trying to use those same skill sets to help this new field of people who want to talk about porn, but in a way that understands its impact. Get it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us quickly, or the audience quickly. I know you share this with me, but how many articles have y'all written or studied on this topic specifically?
Well, I've now got something around 700, I think, in my data bank of stuff. We monitor the literature and we try and read everything that comes out when it's new. Personally, I've now contributed to 5 articles that are either published in peer-reviewed journals. I've got one coming at the present time, and I've also written a couple of other things in collaboration with Mary. So the charity's now been involved in publishing for the last 4 years. But again, our role, we are not research scientists, so we're not doing the core original stuff. What we're doing is trying to get the science to people in a way they can understand, and to do it quickly so that it's fresh and that it's what they need to understand. And that's one of the ways that I think True Radical Love has real potential to grow as a non-profit, because you have focused on getting it's still a shopping list, but a shopping list of what porn does. But that shopping list comes from science, and it's never going to be just simple. It's contentious. Science is an exploratory program. You're trying to understand what's happening, trying to learn. But I've been working there, and I intend to keep involved in the research program. In 2020, we managed to get a paper published where we suggested what research needs to be done over the next 10 years using the European Manifesto on Problematic Internet Use as the framework. So you go from problematic internet to problematic pornography use. And we tried to find a way of doing that, and just suggesting for people, because unless you've actually sort of looked at everything, it's hard to work out where does research need to go next. And the answer is many places. But to have some sort of roadmap we thought was quite important. So we've tried to help other folk in that way. And we're getting a little bit of take up, and it takes time. You've got to put stuff out there and then wait, help promote it. And after a while, with a bit of luck, it'll come back.
Right.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I had a friend ask me again, like, you know, he keeps trying to help me define as simplistically what we are doing. I said, honestly, we really want to be a megaphone. Like, we want to be a platform for all these other amazing nonprofits. And, you know, I know a lot of people's news feeds don't look like mine on Facebook, where I follow all these other nonprofits. I'm like, oh my gosh, I see so much amazing content, meaning facts and sciences that most people need to see this stuff. And there are experts out there that have spent a good bit of their time doing this. In fact, when I asked Daryl, because he's been in the space for 6 years, I was like, all this stuff happening in November, when Pornhub was getting slammed for a lot of things that they've been getting by with for a long time. I just asked Daryl, I'm like, are we just lucky? Like, I mean, did we just hop in the space like around this time when all this is happening? Like, how monumental are these changes? He goes, these are massive. Like, we've never seen changes like this. And there's still a lot of changes to go. And, ironically, before this call, we want to talk about some facts. We want to talk about sciences. Just like Daryl mentioned, we want to have resources. So we're going to put resources in the comments after this, any topic that we talk about, where you can just dive deeper. There are so many topics, and Daryl has a lot of scientific, logical, and experiential articles and papers written on it. But in prep to this call, I just sent out our t-shirts, and on the back there are these statistics on it. And one of my friends wore it to the gym, and his other friend looked at the stats and went to logically try to question, which I am never against someone being skeptical. I think we should be skeptical in ways. But it was interesting because it's just some people cannot. It's either he just wants to know or he just can't fathom that these numbers could be true. And the fact that Daryl mentioned that almost half of the adult population watches porn, and there's so many other things we're going to look into, but the shirt says 40 million Americans watch porn. And he was shocked by that number, where honestly, that could be a little lower. And even in my own studies, when I sent out an anonymous survey, it was funny. There are discrepancies in the same survey. One question asked, "Are you a regular porn user, or are you a current user?" And a lot of people hit no. Only 14 of 81 said yes. But then 3 questions later, I said, "When's the last time I watched porn was?" The most popular answer was yesterday or today. So I was like, okay. So as much as statistics are hard to really decipher on this topic, Daryl, what are some that you have found or things that you find helpful for people that don't understand the problem to really understand the problem of pornography?
I think, well, you've hit on something as to start off with is simply the scale. If we go back 30 years ago, the internet was still only really a concept. It hadn't really happened. I first started using the internet in Australia in 1991 when it was on dial-up, and we would get AOL at very slow bit rates or whatever. But in terms of the World Wide Web, that's only 1994. But from the very start, there was sex stuff going around, and porn was important, but it was still only reaching tiny, tiny numbers of people. Mm-hmm. And when we got fast enough connections around the world, so that when you took out your smartphone, or well, they had to invent smartphones only 2007. That's crazy. Once we got to computers, once the computer screen could have full screen video in color at a reasonable definition with sound on a streamed basis. That was the point. So wherever broadband reached your neighborhood or cable that could do full screen video, then just porn went boom. They'd already developed the tech, so they knew how to do pay-per-view, and they knew how to charge a credit card, and they knew how to make porn, because they've been doing that for 50 years before. But the industry was sort of ready, and as soon as the pipeline became available, first of all in a few countries, and then since really 2008, 2010, the whole world has started to do porn. And what happens when a country first gets high-speed internet is it goes from almost no porn being consumed to a really large amount. So places like many cities in Africa, for instance, go from not having a working telephone system apart from a few really rich people to everybody can buy or get access to a phone. And as soon as data gets cheap enough, a significant portion of the folks start watching porn. And the same happened in India, which is where we've seen fastest growth recently. But the numbers are big. Like, I live in the UK, we've got about 64 million people. And we haven't got an accurate estimate how many people exactly use porn. Various figures come up with. But on every day of the year, Pornhub serves porn sessions to more than 10% of the people. More than 7 million people in the UK use Pornhub's porn. There's plenty of other suppliers. So we know that gives you a sort of a starting point. And then there are people who only watch twice a week. So they would only count on 2 of those days. You've got to have other people who watch 3, 4, 5 times a week to make up for them. The numbers seem to suggest we're getting up towards half of everybody who is an adult and should be watching porn, although the reality is roughly between 20 and 30%, depending on what country you're in, of the porn is watched by people who are under 18, who are technically children. And one of the big things that we've been working on now for the last couple of years is to try and get people to think about having age verification. Because if you want to drink alcohol, you want to buy a gun, you want to buy a knife, all sorts of things, tobacco, you have to be able to prove you're old enough. And if you want to watch porn in the UK, you don't even have to tick a box and say I'm over 18. You can just
even that is that even a starting?
But that means that it's a wild west. It's also a wild west from the supply side. But just the sheer amount. Pornhub have got some legal problems at the moment, and most years Pornhub publish Pornhub Insights somewhere between the end of December and start of January, so say how wonderful the previous year was. So last full year we've got 2019, and they streamed 42 billion, that's American billion, 42,000 million porn videos.
Wow.
So 7 billion people on the planet, so they streamed roughly 6 porn videos for every person alive on the world. Now, if we think
Wow.
about it, of the 7 billion, the poorest 2 billion don't have the internet, so they're obviously not going to watch. The really old don't tend to watch porn. The numbers really do drop away when you're in your 70s, 80s and 90s. And kids under about 10 pretty much mostly don't watch porn. So everybody in the middle's watching a lot of porn. Now, half people probably aren't, but the ones who are watching a lot. And that's the most fundamental thing. We've gone from 20 years ago where most adults who are sexually active and sexually interested were not watching any porn. They might have got a naughty magazine from a newsagent. They might have once a month, once a year seen a sexy video. But it's not on their phone, not on their device. And the other thing is, it's getting up towards 3/4 of all porn is now consumed on a phone.
Wow.
The figures in the UK are about 70%. But it's always with you. And that's the inescapable thing. You can lock the liquor in the cupboard. You can not buy the cigarettes, but the porn's following you around.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much to go there. It's I didn't even think about that. We at our company we had this guest speaker, Peter Diamantis, and he's a very popular guy. He's like helped SpaceX and all this stuff, and he was like getting on this dream pipeline of what the world looked like, and we only have 100% connectivity. What happens with 100% connectivity? I was thinking, you're right. What happens when everyone gets connected? But you know what? There's evil. It seeps everywhere. And, you know, it's almost like, wow, are we bringing them a gift or are we about to bring them an evil that they weren't experiencing before? So that was a very, very interesting take that I didn't even think about. You know, places that don't have connectivity and them having connectivity and just the new issues that arise.
But it's truly a two-edged thing. The internet is humanity's greatest invention to date, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Information is now free, but included in this information is a lot of stuff that we really have to be careful about because it's potentially dangerous. Now, and the existing legal system was set up, so if it's something about terrorism and tells you how to build a bomb, it's illegal in most countries. But if it's sexual material and it's potentially addictive, it's not illegal in most countries. And even in the countries where it is illegal, it's mostly not able to be stopped because you can stop the internet. China, North Korea have demonstrated that to some extent.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're...
Some Iranian researchers recently, they weren't researching in this area, working in other fields, but one woman grew up in Tehran. She's actually from Europe. But they were still able to get illegal porn, but they did it all on USB sticks or by satellite, and satellite dishes on the houses so they could get late night movies. So if you were a teen or a 20-something and you wanted porn, and the average teens in Tehran are just as keen on porn as the average person in the US or in the UK, she said there was never any real constraint. It was a different delivery mechanism, but it's the same tech. Essentially, the mullahs could keep the internet clean, but they couldn't keep the product away from the people who wanted it.
Yeah, I question that. I'm like, let's say Pornhub takes away 80% of their content, all the, let's just call it bad stuff, which none of it's good. It's always an escalating thing. You're continuing to want more and more darker. They can't just give their demand, the base of people that are watching those things want that. You know, they can't create this issue and then just get away from it. You know, people are going to search it. And, you know, something else that was interesting was, this kind of made me laugh a little bit thinking that this guy who is trying to refute some of the stats, he goes, well, let's just take if the population of people over 18 are this age watching it, that puts this much. I go, yeah, in a perfect world, if they were over 18, but more people are watching it. It's not just people over 18. In fact, the fact that you said most people are seeing it between 10 years old to 18 years old, and they're not starting off with, you know, I mean, even when I was a kid, it wasn't like we had access to high definition endless sea of whatever you wanted to watch to whatever,
At the tip of your hands.
right there. Like that
Yeah.
came in my life as I grew through it, and that created a big issue. So a kid that starts there, the escalation is going to be interesting. In fact, even in the own studies I did, some things kind of looked like a bell chart. But I was like, our sample size is a bell chart. So some of these people, it's not that they stop watching as they get older. Our data just hasn't gotten to them being older yet. They are currently watching it. And just really quite shocking. And then the other thing that I love to mention that, Kayla and I, as we watch, not even on pornography, but when we watch Netflix shows, we see how they're trying to desensitize and make things normal. I mean, we were watching a show recently where they showed a naked scene in it, and the person is acting as a
High school student.
like a high school student. Actually, 2 shows in a row. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, okay, this is crazy. But okay, the actress is over 18, so it's legal. But no, you are creating a narrative of watching underage sexual activity, and this is not even on porn. This is on Netflix. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's many things to pick up from what you have there. There's certainly always been people who are interested in sex with younger people, and certainly that's been around. Lolita, Nabokov, that sort of thing. But the situation is quite complicated. Like, let's try and take some of the elements you spoke about there and work with them.
Yeah.
The Pornhub have just taken down more than 10 million videos. That still leaves them nearly 3 million.
Hold on. It cut out at out of the 13 million, 3 million are still up. So they took down 10 million.
Okay, so I'll just do that again. So
yeah,
right, that's cool. So Pornhub have just taken 10 million videos down, and they still have 3 million roughly up. But that's many lifetimes of viewing. If you view 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no human being can view even a fraction of what is there. So already the content, the scale is massive. But what you have in the case of the large commercial porn companies is what they're doing is they're monitoring you. They know every IP address that logs on, they have a record of it, and they start building a profile. So if I log in today from this computer, they instantly start a new account, and they try and work out who you are. They can back check with other sources to find out who owns that stuff coming from that IP address. They can fairly soon get information about or estimates of my age. They'll certainly know my sexual interest, and they'll start to build a profile. And as they build that profile, they will start then to make it sticky, to make it addictive, to make me want to come back and use their product. Because
you're saying they want you to watch more porn.
Of course, that's the business model.
Okay,
the business model is to give away free stuff so that they can sell advertising, or they can sell sexual enhancement products, they can sell premium products, they can sell something. But step right back. How much electricity does porn use? And this is not a dumb question. So if the internet's there, and the internet's powered by electricity, how much of that electricity that takes to run the internet for the whole planet is porn?
Oh man, I don't know. It seems like it's not a trick question, but I don't know if I can't answer.
Okay. In 2019, a French ecological modeling group called the Shift Project did a study where they looked at the carbon emissions for video on demand. And they looked at people like Netflix and Hulu and other ones that you can do for normal content. And they also separately modeled for porn content. And because porn is almost entirely video, their best estimate was roughly 30% of all video on demand on the planet is porn.
Wow.
Now, the internet, you can work out in various ways, but as you work your way back through the numbers, it means that about 0.2% of the electricity we burn for the internet in the world, so the world's electricity, 0.2%, is porn. So when the sea levels rise by 1 metre, 2 millimetres of that will just be from watching porn. And you have to ask yourself,
You have to ask yourself what? Oh my gosh, cliffhanger. Cut out for just a second. You got to ask yourself.
sorry, my internet connection's a bit.
So out of the 1 meter.
So we go. When the sea levels have risen, and you're old people and I'm dead, the sea levels have risen 1 metre. 2 millimetres of that will have been because we were watching porn. You know, this 50 millimetres will be from aeroplanes. And that sort of thing. So the worldwide porn consumes about the same amount of electricity as, say, all the houses in the country of France. Or if you combine, if I've got it right, I think it's California and Florida population is about the same number of people. All of the electricity they burn in all their houses for everything, for heat.
They use a lot of electricity. It's hot down there.
It just gives you a feel of a lot. Now, if it was all green electricity, that wouldn't be a problem, but we don't know that it is. But also think about it. That means that the porn industry is paying for about 30% of the world's electricity to run its servers and to serve that data to you as a household. Now, you pay for the electricity on the last little bit, but how much turnover have they got to be having in order to pay for 1/3 of the world's electricity? It's not free to them because they're porn companies and they operate off the radar. Somebody's paying for the data centers and the thousands of Cisco servers and the engineers. And they're paying for it because they're getting you and they're keeping you. And the people who are watching every day. That's 360 days a year, or every second day, 200 days a year, or whatever. And the engagement is perpetual. It just goes on and on.
It's kind of interesting to think about because, some people have premium subscriptions where they might get like a notification, but not many people have notifications that ding them to watch their next porn. It's almost like it's they kind of realize that. Like Facebook, I get the little red circle on my app and I'm like, oh, I got to hit it or else it's going to drive me crazy. But not many people have a porn. And so it's interesting how consuming it is, yet they don't do that kind of stuff.
Well, they do it, but only within the session. So only once you've arrived and you've arrived on the porn site, then they can do that. And they use exactly the same techniques because the engineers went to Caltech or whatever and did the same courses and they understand how to do it. But the porn has something that Facebook doesn't have. You are naturally a sexual being. That's what we are. And we are the most important thing our genes tell us is breed, go out there, have sex, make the next generation. It doesn't go away. You're like that for 50, 60, 70 years. And we have natural appetites. We have appetites for food, and we also have appetites for sexual things. And these things can be used. They can use them to fix boredom. You don't get bored when you've got porn. It's always there. It's instant on. We hear often quite awful stories of people who are on a date in a restaurant and the guy's getting twitchy, so he disappears to the bathroom and comes back 10 minutes later feeling much better. And his porn session. And that's everywhere in the world you can do that now, pretty much. Antarctica? Questionable. Everywhere else you can do it. I've been last year. I went around the world. We saw people in Asia. You go on a train in Japan. You're in Singapore or whatever. Everybody, carriage of people. Only 3 people aren't sitting there looking at their phone in the 100 people. Internet hooks us, and that's always there. So you've got your base level of engagement, and then you've got porn, which is free. And free, I think it's better than free. It's not true because it's not free. No. But hey, it feels free and you can make it free. About 1% of people pay for their porn. And 99% of people don't directly pay for their porn. And the porn companies commercially, they don't go broke. They do sue each other a lot and they do buy up the small ones to make bigger and bigger ones, which is how come Pornhub now control, I think the last count was 9 of the top 15 sites in the world. But
Wow.
in the top 20 sites for traffic in the world, 3 of them are porn companies. So it is a huge engagement. More people go to Pornhub every day than go to Netflix.
Yeah, and they said like the most detrimental to society. There's some study in it that all these that show them heavily trafficked, and said the most detrimental though is Pornhub. I mean, it's just not talked about. People don't talk about what they're watching. But when the guys come together and we like really get real with it of like what we consumed, it's not good. And yeah,
I don't think singling out porn. We're singled out Pornhub because they've self-advertised, which means that they've given us the data to work with.
Yeah.
xx.com are actually, as a single site, have got more traffic, but all of them have essentially the same business model. So there until you can get to some of the very small fish, there are no ethical porn sites, and even then, you can just choose how to describe ethics and decide what counts as ethical. But the mistakes that Pornhub have been making in terms of showing rape videos of children or whatever, there's no evidence that the other big porn companies don't do exactly the same thing. But we finally managed to find a company that we can talk about, because Pornhub have put themselves out there as the yay, go-to, fabulous, free love, it's marvelous sort of group. And therefore we can do something about that and run with that. The model is clearly wrong, and therefore you can say something about it. Have you seen today's news about Pornhub?
Today,
as in today, it may actually be yesterday because it's Canadian news. One of the ladies who was in the New York Times article has been testifying to a Senate subcommittee, and the Pornhub people have had to put in a submission, and they will be in front of the same committee, I believe, next week.
Wow.
And this is the first time, they're not a Canadian company, but they're headquartered in Canada, and that makes them potentially quite vulnerable there. They also employ a couple of thousand people there.
Yeah, I mean, they have MindGeek, the owner of Pornhub. They have places in Bucharest, Romania. They have places in Luxembourg. They have places they have a place in California. I get curious on why are they in Eastern Europe? Why are they in, I know that's an area where, trafficking. I know Moldova said that there's a stat where about 10% of their population has been trafficked before, from Exodus Cry's video, Nefarious. And that's just shocking, that they would be there. They are where there is trafficking. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, but they're also they're everywhere essentially. It's not quite everywhere, but they've got half a dozen major cities. They're in London. London has an element of trafficking, but they're not in London because of the trafficking. I don't believe. I think they're in London because of the promotion. But there was also what there is always a game of sort of hide the penny, where you try and make sure that whatever you're doing wrong can't be seen. So the porn companies. I live as a part of Europe. I know Britain has just officially left the European Union, but most porn that is streamed into the European Union comes from places like Serbia and North Cyprus, which are physically right next to Europe, but they're not part of the European Union. They're a looser regulation area. And the reason that MindGeek are based in Luxembourg as the ultimate site of the company is because you have relatively light reporting from a corporate point of view. Yeah. You can play the tax games to hide money from the tax man there, and but they don't really conduct any porn business there. The same as you go to the Pornhub website, and the start of it doesn't tell you anything about porn. It tells you about information, entertainment, customer attainment, all sorts of stuff. But they're not selling them. So it's a game of, what am I hiding under my hand? And they don't want to you to see that.
It's kind of fun. It was interesting because one time I was like, I want to get some stats. In fact, for this T-shirt, even, or stats, whatever. I'm looking on a website, stats on porn, and I end up being on this website. I'm like, wow, these are really good stats. Like, where's this from? I look up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on Pornhub right now. It's like, I really don't want to see, like, and they literally have their own website. I do not want to promote to go there or anything like that, but it is shocking how proud of their terrible stats they are. I mean, I would, even have like a health center, and they statistically showed the most requested question, like erectile dysfunction was one of the highest questions. And they go, no, porn's not the issue. It's like, well, that's your most popular health question. And it's shocking.
The truth is, of course, part of their business model is to create sexual dysfunctions. You create more interest in sex, say you sell sex toys, or more interested in unusual sexual behavior. So you'll choose video. You want to get special videos with big, beautiful women or whatever, 500-pound women. That's something they can sell you. And I've known people who've spent $20,000, $30,000 a year buying that just from one customer, which is much better than selling 20,000 things for $1 each. So you've got people who are hooked in that way. I'm sorry, where was I going next on that? What was the last thing?
We can get on rabbit holes sometimes.
The rabbit holes caught me.
Oh, it was the erectile dysfunction, how they...
Yes, come back to erectile dysfunction. Because one of the biggest technological advances was the invention of Viagra. Sildenafil citrate made Pfizer many billions of dollars. It's now off patent. There are also other erectile dysfunction treatments, but it's not something that the porn companies want to talk about. But if they can generate by getting you erectile dysfunction and getting you addicted, and you don't even have to be necessarily addicted to get erectile dysfunction, then advertisers will pay them to sell you Cialis or to sell you generic Viagra, real Viagra, penis implants, expanders, everything. It's all there because it's advertising money that is what the real benefit is for the company. The core, that's your big lump of money is either direct advertising, which goes through things, and Pornhub now has a complete, what do they call it? It's where you plug an app in, an API, application programming interface, for advertisers to work with Pornhub to get their products placed in the right place so that they will sell more effectively. And that's now a significant component of Pornhub's income. And again, that's free information, is freely available on the web. They want you to know that they can do that and you can hook up. It's just as good as the ones you would get for Facebook or for Google advertising or whatever. And Facebook and Google between them control 70% of the world's digital advertising. So there's big money to be made there. The Pornhub people and the other porn companies mostly do it off, not so obviously, but they're clearly moving into the space. And if they can't do direct adverts for you, the other thing is they will sell your data. And this is a relatively unregulated industry. And by operating across national borders and moving your data across borders, because when you type in porn and you want to go and see something on Xhamster or whatever, you've no idea where the data's gone. And they certainly didn't get you to sign a little thing to agree how much of what sort of data, but they do know you went on sites for lesbians, and they do know that you've been in the game now for 3 years and that you used to be a once a month viewer and now you're every day. And they do know what house you live in. A third of the people, getting on towards a third, something to 30, 33, 35%, they actually know who you are when you log on because you can join the data up at the back end using the big computers.
Probably even when you don't log, because when you say log on, people think like Facebook when they log in, but just even when they type it in and go there.
No, but you hit the link you've already got in your browser, Chrome or Explorer or whatever, and it takes you to your favorite porn site. Bingo, you've arrived. They know who you are in roughly a third of the people on the planet who go on because they've done their homework, because that's where the money is. As the great Gail Dines, the anti-porn feminist, always says, follow the money. That her husband's a business school manager, and that's what they've learned to do, and it's what we've learned to try and do as well. Because most people running the porn industry at the top are interested in money. They're not interested in porn.
Yeah.
Porn producers, some of them are really quite challenging people, and they're really sexually obsessed, and they are interested in the porn and the sex. But that's not where the people who design the mega systems that can now handle millions of people an hour and maintain it, these are giant information collecting machines.
Wow.
And that's what they're there to do. And that's what us little fish out on the outside have got to wave signs and say, please, sir, this is not a clever thing to do.
Yeah. I do believe that it takes a lot more money for a bad thing than it does for a nonprofit. Like even Fight the New Drug, for example, you shared with me kind of where their budget is. To see the impact they make at a fraction of the budget that Pornhub has is powerful. So I do think that having more nonprofits, and again, that's where I want to live in the space of abundance, that we believe we need to link arms and we need to fight this all together, because it is going against a really big company. And you're right, they're more interested in your data. They're more interested in the things outside of what we even think about. A few other things I find interesting. Well, one thing is like I found that there's not really any good in porn. And I mean, there are people out there that defend it. I think most people are probably more like they don't want to believe it, or they just want to stay in the dark. They don't want to be informed against it. But it just, because like if you really think about it, like it just does so much. People are harmed by it. Their spouses are harmed by it. Their kids be harmed by it. And I even think that, let's say they clean it up, which it's impossible, but let's say they get rid of all the legal stuff. I mean, we're talking about videos of children being raped, non-consensual, like spy cams, all this stuff that's so evil. But even if they act the evil out, meaning if they were to, let's say it's all part of the script, but they're depicting a incestual relationship, like a father and a daughter, or something, is that better if it's not real? Like, no, the fact that the acting of pornography is really messing with people. I mean, it's not good.
I think that's a pretty good description there, Cole, of the sort of space that we're operating. It's not good, and it's a question of how we can get people to think in a different way. And at the present time, what we've got is a long arc of history. When Playboy started in the 1950s, they gradually built a message that this is something that's fun, that it's consensual, and it's also not dangerous. And the porn industry, as it's developed, has kept those sorts of elements to the fore, and the people who want to defend the industry always focus on the fact that it's consensual activity between adults, and particularly in the US, where you've got laws that will encourage or support that. That can work, but plenty of other parts of the world have different laws, but they still say generally pornography is okay. But that's operating on the basis of, until we've actually tried people out for quite a long time on this, do we really know? So the precautionary principle, which you will find in other things, say for pesticides or for drugs, we haven't had to apply to pornography. The assumption was that a little bit didn't seem to do anybody any harm, therefore a lot was going to be okay. And for things like interpersonal relationships between men and women, parents and children or whatever, that's not proving to be so true necessarily. But at the same time, the stuff is really exciting. And because it's exciting, it's a self-perpetuating thing. You don't want to believe that this could be a problem, because you've got to pay for your drink, you've got to pay for your cigarettes, you've got to pay for your foreign holiday, you've got to pay for everything. This is free. And that's really, really dangerous because it's so insidious. And the reality is we also didn't have science. And one of the great protectors is we've seen the porn industry use the big tobacco playbook, where for half a century they were in one way or another able to deny it's not our fault. We are good tobacco growers, our leaves are lovely, the cigarettes we make are very mild, that can't possibly do you any harm. And it took a long time, and eventually the science first of all demonstrated that it could cause various lung conditions, then that it caused one sort of cancer. I think they're up to 35 sorts of cancer now.
Wow.
And we now know that there is harm, and gradually the courts paid attention. The Marlboro man died of lung cancer, unsurprisingly. And roughly half of the people who die from having smoked cigarettes for most of their life don't die of that. They die of something else. But on average, their lives are a little bit less long, but half of them do. And with porn, the problems, again, need to be looked at both at the individual level. I've got erectile dysfunction, I haven't, or I can't not watch porn 3 times a day, or I can control myself and it's not an issue and I watch once a month and it's not a problem. So both are happening at the same time. And also over time in the population. Like anybody who is under 20 now really cannot remember a time when they couldn't see a video on a computer. The generation who are under 20 are now completely within the porn industry's grab. And then porn's really only spread out in about the last 15 years. It's gone worldwide and it's gone mainstream. It was always there yapping at the corners trying to, promote itself as something that was wonderful. Well, now it's moved to a much stronger place and it's got the industry dominance. It's managed to roll out to a point where hundreds of millions of people are using the product all of the time. It's now into billions, I believe. And the science hasn't caught up because at the same time, like very, very sensibly, and I would do this if I was a commercial porn company, I'm not going to give the researchers access to my back end so they can see how I'm doing the data manipulation and they can see how how we are manipulating the clients and just how many people they are. Pornhub give us a modest amount of information, and you can go onto some of the website traffic companies to find out a bit about how much stuff's getting moved around. But it's not... the data is relatively obscure, and it's certainly, if I'm a porn researcher and I want easy access to whole of industry data, there is no place you can currently get that other than by scraping little bits from here and there. A few papers have been published, have had back-end assistance, and that's usually to help the porn companies build better tech. So how
You're saying that the data's catching up with them.
Sorry?
Are you saying the data's catching up with them? It's now coming out a little bit more, but it's kind of like
a tiny bit is coming out. But we're developing as researchers more techniques for watching, observing. It's like think a biologist. You're going to investigate gorillas, and the first day you go out in the field, you don't really know anything about gorillas. And after you've been there for 20 years, you've got a pretty good idea of where to find them, who they are, what you're going to do to track them, what you're going to observe of them, all the different scientific tools. You'll have a kit of things you need to know in terms of cameras, recording devices, what analysis you're going to do back in the lab, whatever. We're all still at the early days of that. Now, that's maybe a route that we're going to go down, and I think it's a helpful route, but there are also other routes to go down in terms of the legal ones, which is potentially a much bigger hammer to hit the porn companies with in the short term, because where they do break the law, and because they're using videos, they are effectively providing evidence against themselves. If there is a crime, and the crime can be linked to the videos they're putting up, they're in a relatively weak position. You can use Section 230 to say, I'm only a common carrier, it wasn't my fault that it was on my platform. But after you've ignored the first several takedown requests through the formal system, requests from lawyers in writing, that sort of thing, the companies are not doing themselves any good. And I think that is a way on a political level, we can campaign, but also we now have good evidence of what people, what porn does to people's minds, to their personalities over time. And because it's a complicated question, different folk have different brains and not everybody will be the same. But almost all of the research generally indicates that more porn is less helpful. It's hard to be more, but the same as one cigarette.
It's the same thing as a drug addiction. The more you do, you got to use more because the feeling of the reward part of your brain, kind of like the reward foundation that you're talking about, their nonprofits based on, is that it's that same similarity to any drug addiction where you want more and it feels less per use. And yeah, it's almost compulsory at that point or habitual from there.
Well, that's the whole methodology of the porn companies is to try and build that. And we they want you to use their products. They don't mind if they hurt you in the process.
Yeah.
And what we're now seeing traditionally is basically they are help promoting, and I think there's pretty good evidence of this, of interest in child sexual abuse imagery.
Yep.
Because the standard things that they're pushing on the porn sites to make your porn more interesting are things like incest. So they use faux incest, fake incest porn with people who say you're my stepsister or whatever, but it's really not. But we also do, you can find if you go hunting, plenty of real incest porn, mother-daughter combinations, these sorts of things that sort of make you go, woo, woo. But both parties are over 18. They're actually legal in many countries. So you've got, but that's pushing your interest in one direction. The other core thing is younger and younger women, and this is the whole team thing. Ever since the pornography companies discovered that people like pictures of naked members of the opposite sex, younger and younger ones were interesting. But we've got a social problem. Probably about 1% of men and a smaller percentage of women, maybe even 2% of men, by actually their orientation is towards children for whatever reason. That's been a fairly strong research area for the last 30 years, if not longer. And there's plenty of information. And their relationship of that group with pornography has been well studied. And the people who then go on to become contact offenders, child molesters, we know a lot about them, but almost all of them do use porn and do actively seek out what is essentially very illegal material. But
they promote that. They I think Layla Mikawa, or it might have been Fight the New Drug, but they shared this tweet that Pornhub posted. It was like, watch this video of a very young teen. It's like, hold on a second. What's a teen is anywhere between the ages of 13 and 18. So if you're saying a young teen, they're literally promoting. Now maybe that person is legal. That is just, and maybe what they're feeding.
And maybe they're not, and that's really all we can say to them.
Yeah, that'd be even more. Yeah, maybe they're not.
But so that you're exacerbating a problem that's already there. But what we're seeing with this promotion of continuing young model pornography is that if you start to go in that direction, and they will often be serving things up in your, watch this next feed or the next video, as they have, younger girls particularly, is that they're training a new generation of porn consumers to become people who want to do that. And one of the things that the Reward Foundation that we've become involved in is trying to help people who have escalated watching legal pornography then to illegal pornography. And the thing that we've become quite staggered by is the number of people who've got caught in that way, who are either on the autistic spectrum or have learning disabilities or ADHD, these sorts of things. Like people on the spectrum and people with learning disabilities make up about 2% of, say, the UK population, so 2 in 100. But if you look at people who are being charged for possession of illegal images of children, about 30% of the people who are charged are on the spectrum or have learning disabilities. What you've got there is a perfect thing of the people who are good on the internet are also good at getting themselves on the dark web, getting themselves taken down the rabbit hole. And in many cases, they have not grown up to a point where they are able to function normally as adults. They tend to have very poor social skills, poor eye contact skills, not good at taking turns for speaking, a whole range of things, all of which mean that sex on the internet is much more what they're likely to get into, but also they are much more likely to have the tech skills and the time on the net before they start to, first of all, see something that's shocking and involves children, and then to get more and more into it. And we're now trying to work out from a legal point of view, because like in the UK, having autism is a protected disability factor. To what extent does that become a mitigating factor? It's not, you can't get off a charge because you've got a factor like that. So if you murder somebody when you're drunk, you still murdered them, you're still guilty. But it's a question of to what extent does this sort of factor get taken into account in the court. But equally, where is the role of the pornography company in working with your brain over a 3 or 4 or 5 year period to teach you to want this stuff?
Oh, and they combine different. They're like, oh, well, some people like teen. Oh, some people like aggressive rape culture. Oh, you know what? Let's make a beautiful blend of both. And it's fine. Nothing's wrong with that, And then people, we know this. We know that people don't just think about porn when they're watching it. When they're done watching porn, they're still thinking about it. So with someone, when people are trying to fit like, oh, it's what's in their private life. It's like, if what's in their private life it's gonna come out in their public life. I mean, if they are a school teacher, but they're watching teen pornography at night, that's not good. That's gonna be something bad. So we gotta wrap up here.
Yeah.
This might just be part one. and actually it is part one because part two, Daryl will be live with us on our Zoom call on Thursday.
Yeah.
So again, as a reminder, first week of the month, we do our guest call like here, and then we have our guests join us at our Zoom call. Now, Daryl actually joins us almost every week on our men's call. He is a regular attendee there that just gives so much wisdom to the young guys, the older guys. Everyone in our group is just really thankful that Daryl's there. And from topics that we talked about, Daryl has, well, we didn't talk about this one, but Daryl has a lot of material for parents. He has a lot of material we talked a little bit about age identification. So directions going there. So after this, Daryl will share a lot of his articles. And if you want to send it to us so we can post it and do the work there, we can. But we will post those on the link underneath or on the comments. So
also, don't forget the women's and men's calls are going to be together.
Yeah.
So women, it's going to be at 10:45 instead of 12 this week on Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be together. So yeah. Thank you. That's what I was going to go with. The first of the month is together. So if you and your spouse are part of the community, you want to sit and watch it together like Kayla and I.
Or even if they haven't been on before, this is a good first time for them to come on. Yeah,
it's a great time to be introduced. And we really encourage, if you are in a relationship or married, to both be on, to both take this journey together. And we're really excited to see the women's community grow, really excited about the men's community. We're so thankful to have Daryl with us. So be sure to go to his website, rewardfoundation.org. We'll put a lot of links underneath as well. Can't hear me. But yeah, that's Daryl. Any final words? Oh yeah, I think am I frozen? Okay, there you are.
Yeah, all right.
Any final words to the audience and anything else you want to leave us on?
I encourage you to have a look at our website. We've been building resources, exactly as Cole says, for the last few years. We've got stuff for teachers in schools. We've got stuff for parents. We've got stuff for people who have problems with porn themselves. We have a whole professional day teaching course accredited by the Royal College of General Practitioners in London. And we've been teaching that now for coming into our 4th year. And we've spoken all over the world on all sorts of groups, everything from addicts and men's groups to people like Catholic priests and nuns. We are capable of taking really quite a broad approach and to finding ways to help, because the important thing is when someone else confides in you as a person or you as a professional, I've got a problem, you need to know where to start. And we're not the only place. When we're a part of a wider group of people, of the ecosystem that includes True Radical Love and the Reward Foundation, Fight the New Drug, Nicosi, but many other around the world to have an opportunity to be able to equip yourself to say the right things.
Yeah.
I'd like to end with one very, very short encouragement. A colleague of ours, Gary Wilson, wrote this book a few years ago. It's now the #1 book on Amazon. And
Wow.
Gary generously has equipped Amazon for porn, not #1 on Amazon. Let's be quite clear about that. And Gary has generously gifted the royalties of his share of that to the Reward Foundation. So that pays for, in part, for our work, and it's helped us develop things. The important thing of this book is that it's basically about people who are in recovery, and it uses a brain model, looks at the behavioral addictions, and that has hundreds of stories, literally hundreds of stories, of people who had porn in their lives and were able to find a way out by quitting in various ways. So encourage people. And if people do need something that's pretty solid, a book like this will work. And you can have it as an audio book. We've now got it out in 5 other languages. You can have it as a Kindle, e-reader, whatever, and hopefully more languages coming quite soon. So
awesome. Well, we'll do this. If you we'll give away a free book, maybe 2.
Oh, absolutely.
Free books on Thursday. You gotta be on live.
Okay.
And we'll do a little drawing. And if you bring a friend, you get 2 entries. So if you bring a friend to the call, your spouse is on the call, we will give you an extra entry for the book. And we might give out 3 if we're just really generous and the book's not like $50 a book. You know, we want to get these out. And well, again, thank you, Daryl. This has been just such a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll see you on Thursday. We might have another time where we can talk more about this. We'll be attending the maybe speaking. I know you'll be speaking, and maybe then the COSI would want us to speak too. But we'll see y'all at the National Coalition, the Coalition to End Sexual Exploitation. So again, thank you, Daryl. We'll see everyone on Thursday. 10:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have any questions, just keep commenting. You can comment on this video. Daryl's going to post some links on this video. But we're excited to see you guys. Again, we're going to be giving away free books. So bring your spouse, bring a friend, invite someone there. And we look forward to seeing everybody.
All right. See ya.